Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Huckabee, and welcome to Conversations with Nicole. My guest today is Michele Talley. She's the founder of Student Leadership Discovery. Student Leadership Discovery is a faith based nonprofit organization that empowers students with the knowledge, values, and conviction to make a lasting cultural impact through a biblical worldview, and of course, to create leaders. To learn more about SLD, visit studentleadershipdiscovery.org. But first, I hope you enjoy our conversation about student leadership discovery. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Nicole. I am delighted to have as my guest today founder of Student Leadership Discovery nonprofit organization based out of South Carolina, Michele Talley. It is a privilege to have you on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you, Nicole. It's been great to be here. I'm pretty excited about sharing all the vision of Student Leadership Discovery.
I'm excited to have you. Let's talk a little bit, first of all, about what Student Leadership Discovery is and why you felt there was a need to start the nonprofit.
Exactly. Well, our mission statement is to cultivate students to make a cultural impact through a biblical worldview. And, for many, many years, several decades now, have been involved in student ministry and working with students on some level, whether that be 10 years student ministry or whether in the classroom or whether that with the nonprofit that I recently worked with for the past 4 to 5 years. Well, there is such a need in our culture. I think we see um, the negative things in our culture and we think, well, what could I do differently? And not only do adults feel that way, but students feel that way. And so, as I was working with this nonprofit, we worked with women that were in pregnancies that they just weren't really sure what they needed to do with that pregnancy. And so, these students would help, with diaper drives. During COVID, we even had one young man in the parking lot putting together a crib for a woman that was in a high risk pregnancy in an apartment complex to get that crib ready for this mom that was pretty anxious because it was a very anxious time for everyone, especially a mom that was in a high risk pregnancy. So it was just really amazing to watch students make a difference in the culture and realize that they didn't have to wait till they were 18 or 21. They could make a difference at 15, 16, and 17. And so that's kind of how everything began, was watching students make a difference in our community where they were. And so as this group began to grow and make more and more impact and step into all kinds of areas of helping with foster care and the homelessness and those things, we began to see that it was really about developing leaders that wanted to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And thus, Student Leadership Discovery was born.
Yeah. And young people need to know they can make a difference. That's so important. And changing the culture, changing the outlooks, changing what we see every day to be better than it is sometimes that we currently see. And that's the goal. And building these positive leaders who want to make a difference.
When I looked across curriculum and other organizations, I found groups and I found organizations that built leaders. There's like 87,000 leadership books literally written out there. And some of those are for students. But none of them came from a biblical worldview basis. We also saw biblical worldview camps and summer events where it would be a week to 2 or 3 weeks, but there were not consecutive programs that worked with students throughout the year. And then there were mentor programs, but mentor programs that did not involve biblical worldview and understanding the big picture of making cultural impact. And we live in a culture right now where it seems like there's so many things dividing people. It's like everybody has an opinion, but yet maybe they don't understand where their opinion's coming from, and whoever's yelling the loudest is getting the most attention. When the truth is there are opportunities to make a difference in the culture without having to have a megaphone. And so
Thank goodness, right?
I,
Thank goodness.
I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. And understanding why you believe what you believe. Why do you believe something? Is it just because your grandparents, or because you've heard it, or because your friends do? Why is it that you as an individual believe what you believe? And so, working with students in the nonprofit in the pregnancy care where we were, I was seeing them make a difference and get excited about it. So every time we would have an event in our community, they would come alongside. They learned to speak in public. They learned to see a need, meet a need. And so it became more than just a one issue situation or a one aspect of the culture. It became of like, how can we develop leaders that are looking into going into a variety of professions? How can we develop them, give them the opportunities to go ahead and serve at 15 and 16, get their feet wet, see if that really is the avenue and the place they want to put down roots they want to pursue, and understand why they're doing what they're doing. If you understand your why,
Yes.
then you're going to be so, number one, you're going to have a lot more direction. You're going to see, because you have more of a start of where you're coming from. So then you
You
can,
have that foundation. You're not getting confused by the other things that are coming at you in the world. You are educated, informed, and you know your why. And your
exactly,
actions speak louder than words often too when you're doing these things in the community.
absolutely our actions. People really, the old adage, it's an old saying, but it's very true. It's the reason it's a cliche, is that people really don't care how much you know until they care how much you, so they know how much you
If you
care.
care. Yes.
And that is so important. So, student leadership discovery is all about helping students discover their God given purpose, discovering how they can be leaders, and that is leadership skills and character development, and then engagement. So, giving them opportunities to serve. So, since September of last year, our students have had an opportunity to serve in more than 30 events, have served over 658 hours worth of service hours, and over 1,400 people have been served through students out of student leadership discovery. And that has been in a variety of areas. And so seeing them, everything from international teachers that are here in the United States serving in our public schools, serving those teachers and their children, serving with foster care events, serving with high risk moms that are in high risk pregnancies, serving in all areas of our community. And it's just been really beautiful to watch. In fact, last week, or actually next week, we have an opportunity to serve with Samaritan's Purse that are here in our local area, cleaning up after a storm that just recently.
Yeah. So the students come to you, they are looking to be leaders. And so you really have a variety of ways for them to engage. And at the same time, you're talking to them about cultural change. Elaborate a little bit more about that.
Well, I think that, as we were talking earlier, that we see so much division, and we see areas of our culture that, from a biblical worldview, are issues that go contrary or opposite to what you read in the scriptures. And so the Christians a lot of times feel like their voices are not being heard, or are being disregarded. And so, how do we engage a culture that that we're so controversial, but yet we want to be able to help people live lives that are fulfilled by understanding the scripture? And so, I always go back to the story in the scripture where Jesus met the woman at the well, and
Yeah.
he met her there. And of course, he asked for a drink of water. It was the middle of the day. She's a foreigner.
Mhm.
And, they're from different cultures. They're male, female, which was very, in that day, males and females were viewed very different. And when Jesus met her, he didn't say, "Oh, you're a horrible person," or "You're not as valuable as I am," or any of those things. Instead, he asked her good questions, and he engaged her in a way that she ran back to her hometown and said, "Let me tell you about this man I just
Yeah.
met. He
Yeah.
told me everything bad I've ever done, but he met her in a way that she wanted to know more of him and wanted to know more of the truth that he had to offer."
Yeah.
And if we as a culture if we as Christians engaged our culture in that way, and we learned how to ask good questions, and we learned how to love in a way that you don't, you don't compromise on the truth. You don't, compromise on what the scripture says, but you know how to engage in a way. And that's what we want to do, is to help students understand in their circle of influence where they are right now, to make an impact where they are, to be able to speak truth in love in a way that they can be heard because they're actually involved. They're not just standing with a microphone yelling, but they're actually involved in making a cultural difference. And they gain that respect, and they gain the ability and the skills to be able to actually have those conversations that make a difference. And so
Yeah.
not only are they making a difference in the culture and their circle of influence they're in right now, but in the circle of influence that they'll launch into. And so that's
And
been
what a confidence builder for them to be able to do that and to talk about their faith in a very loving and kind way, but also in their show of service. It really is where the rubber meets the road, that someone goes, "Hey, they really are showing me who they are by what they're doing in the community as well. They're not just talking and making me feel bad or worse or who I am, but saying, we love you, and this is how we are showing our love of the Lord, by serving others." And so I would think that would make a big difference in their life and in the lives of those that they are trying to serve, and in their role as becoming leaders as they move forward. Is
exactly.
that basically sound like what's happening? I don't know. That's what I'm hearing.
That is exactly what's happening. And understanding that you don't have to compromise, you don't have to back up on what you believe, or what you know to be true, because of if the scripture is your ruler and is your guideline, then you're not going to, where the standard is, because the standards, when we go on our feelings or we go on what other people say, and that standard slides. But when you go on a standard that's been set in scripture, and you know what that is. And so that was another thing that helped launch Student Leadership Discovery, is we saw students that were gaining a confidence in high school. They were being given opportunities to do public speaking, opportunities to serve, opportunities to manage and create events. And so as they gained that confidence, they gained the experience, because everything is about practice.
Yes.
When you have that practice, and you're getting that practice at 15 and 16 and 17, then when you launch at 18, 19, 20, you already have this experience to build on. So, for instance, we have several students that have come out of our program that, in high school, a couple of examples that I'll give you. We had one young lady, and I'll never forget. She's a beautiful 6'1" volleyball player, and went to play collegiate volleyball. Well, when she was in high school, um, and her mom tells the story about how she really didn't even like to pump her own gas. She just really didn't even like to have to be, she loved to be on the volleyball court, but as far as speaking in public, or taking those leads, were a little bit intimidated. And so we gave her the opportunity to speak at an event at a church one night about what we did as a pregnancy care center, how we helped take care of moms, and all the services we offered. And so I will never forget helping her write her first speech. And she went to give that, and she was like, I don't know about all this, but she went and did it anyway. But that is when she found her voice. And so she went on to college to play volleyball. And when she got there, of course, the whole women's sports as she became, and she had competed against biological males and had seen a teammate with
Oh,
her
wow.
nose busted from playing across the net from a biological male, because biological males play on a net that are 7.5 inches taller than what females play on. And
Wow.
so she began speaking about this issue, to protect women's sports, because women have fought long and hard to be able to have an arena to compete in. And so she has been on an airplane many times back and forth to DC to speak to Congress, to speak in press conferences. She's been on national news organizations
Oh,
multiple times. But I look back and I think about her sitting on the floor in my office as we worked through that speech, that first speech, and I saw a beautiful young woman with many talents find her gift that day. And now she is has just graduated last week from Lee University, and she will be working with Concerned Women for America as the Southeastern Regional Rep there. And so,
that's a great success story. I mean, how your program empowered her to find her voice and to make a difference in her community. That's wonderful. So, actually, talk a little bit about how when young adults can get involved in your program, how long they can stay in it, and I guess the graduation from
right.
student leadership discovery.
Right. Well, so we have launched brand new, and in looking at different curriculum and all of the things, like how do we build a program out from scratch? Well, obviously, I had a base to understand that when you empower students and give them the opportunity to serve, give them the opportunity to stand next to mentors in our community that are making a difference, mentors that have built businesses around their faith and what they believe to make a difference. Um, looking at the big picture. So students can come in, it's from 9th to 12th graders. And right now we have everything from public school to charter school to private school to homeschool, really a whole variety. And what's really beautiful is several of them have known each other throughout the years, but most of them do not hang in the same circles. They come from different churches, different denominations, different backgrounds, and so when they come into the program, they can stay all 4 years of high school. But they can come in. So we're in the process of developing curriculum right now, and what we're doing is we're building that curriculum from the bottom up. So are building it on biblical worldview. Then and so it goes in a cycle. So they can be in all 3 years, and then their fourth year as a senior, they serve as a leader to the
Oh,
other leaders coming in.
awesome.
So you're getting your biblical worldview, which is where it all begins. Then you have your cultural conversations that you're having, learning leadership skills like public speaking, like how to organize an event, how to manage your time, how to manage your money. All of those things that learning who you are. All of those things in skills. Then also learning, your leadership character, like what does it mean to walk in humility and confidence at the same time? What does it
Wow.
mean to walk with virtue and character? What does it mean to understand what it means to put others before yourself? So looking at ways to do that. So as we build on that, and then out of those basic structures, then you're able to engage. So they're getting an opportunity to engage in all kinds of opportunities to serve and to lead, to speak, to lead in seminars, to actually participating in events, to also being able to develop what they believe, why they believe it, and step out in that. And then also to step into what the next thing is. So we're pairing students with people in the community that own their own businesses, people that are already in ministry opportunities. We are going to visit college universities, tech schools, things like that, being able to hear, you may not need to spend $50,000 and get $50,000 in debt to do X, Y, and Z. You may be able to go around and be able to embark in that career from a different pathway. And then last week we took a couple of students down to shadow Senator Westheimer in Columbia and spent some time. We've got a couple of students that are looking at interning with him next year as high school students, and so we're super excited to see opportunities open up for students with student leadership skills.
Well, you really do have all the bases covered. And I think one thing that's very important is that you're empowering these students to learn about all aspects of life, of actually developing your whole life from the biblical aspect. But so many skills that are needed to be successful and be leaders are the things that you're talking about: finances, just understanding how our world works in general, but working in a biblical way is the difference. So it sounds wonderful. And you've got students that have gone on from the program to have great success. You mentioned the young lady who was the volleyball player. So you are seeing success. So tell folks how they can find out about your program, maybe how they can help if they want to, or get involved.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you can look at our website at studentleadershipdiscovery.org. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, and we actually have a high school student that is running. He's running our social media for us, so which is probably a lot better than me trying to run our
I
social
think
media.
the longer they are, the better they are. Is that right?
Absolutely, it is their second language. When you talk about
Yes,
being bilingual, they are definitely
it's
fluent
very true.
media. So you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and you can get involved. You can donate. Of course, that is a big part of developing a nonprofit from scratch. There is a lot of uh, needs, of course,
Yeah.
financial needs, as well as we need volunteers, we need mentors, we need people to step up and get involved in making a difference in this next generation. I think one of the things that has us all kind of disturbed is we see all the negative things in the
Amen.
world, but there is so much positive. And they're really the now generation. These students are not our next generation of leaders because they're leading right now where they are. And we need to come alongside them and help equip them. And so we would love to have some volunteers. If you're a businessman and you are strong in your faith and would love to have a student leader come along and shadow you for a day, or come and find out how you run your business out of your faith, man, I would love to talk to you about that, because we would love to get our students connected.
Well, I think it's wonderful what you're doing, and it definitely is a call to everyone in the community who has their faith to be able to um, raise up this now generation to be our leaders now and in the future. So kudos to what you're doing. Thank you so much for being my guest today. This is certainly inspiring. And you know what? In a time when sometimes people feel hopeless, this should give us hope that there are good things happening. We know it, but it's so nice to hear it and see it. So thank you for what you're doing for our now generation and for future generations.
Thank you, Nicole, and I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to share a little bit more about student leadership discovery.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure. Thank you again. And that will do it for this edition of Conversations with Nicole. Until I see you again, I hope you have a great day.